You're just a waiter, and you'll never be more than that.
You're just a waiter, and you'll never be more than that. The billionaire's voice echoed across the golden room, dripping with mockery. Laughter followed, elegant, cruel, synchronized like champagne glasses, clinking in arrogance. The young waiter froze, tray trembling slightly in his hands. Crystal light from the chandelier drew a halo over his bowed head, while the billionaire's grin widened, proud of his cruelty. No one spoke for him. Not one person in that room full of silk and diamonds dared to stop the laughter. Yet in the stillness of that young man's eyes, there was something quiet, something that didn't fit the image of a servant being humiliated, a storm hidden behind calm water. And when the truth finally came out, it would turn that laughter into silence. It would make every single person in that room wish they had treated him differently. Before we begin this emotional story, tell us in the comments from which city you are watching, and don't forget to leave your like to keep following us. The laughter didn't last long after the waiter turned away. The billionaire, Michael Turner, leaned back in his velvet chair, still smirking as he reached for his glass of Bordeaux. The crowd of executives and models at his table returned to their conversations, their voices fluttering like moths against crystal. But for a moment, just a heartbeat, someone noticed the young man's hands trembling as he placed the tray on the counter. Then he straightened his vest, lifted his chin, and disappeared through the kitchen doors. Inside, the sound changed. The laughter became the hiss of boiling water, the metallic clatter of pans, the rhythm of orders shouted across a crowded kitchen. Ethan wiped his hands, breathing in the steam. His reflection glimmered faintly on the polished surface of the sink, the same sharp jawline, the same eyes that once looked out of an office window, not a kitchen wall. He turned away before the memory could hurt more than it already did. "Hey, you okay, man?" asked Leo, another waiter tossing a towel over his shoulder. Ethan forced a smile. "Yeah, just another rich guy with a god complex." Leo frowned. "That one's Michael Turner, right? Turner Industries? The guy who bought half the city?" Ethan nodded without answering. The name was familiar, too familiar. The door swung open and the restaurant manager stepped in. "Ethan," he said softly. Table 7 asked for another bottle. The same people. For a moment, Ethan didn't move. His jaw tightened, but he nodded. On it. When he returned to the dining room, the air felt heavier, like a performance resuming after a cruel intermission. Michael leaned close to a woman in red, whispering something that made her laugh. The sound made Ethan's pulse tighten, but he kept walking, eyes low, voice steady. "Excuse me, sir," he said, pouring the wine carefully. Michael turned his head, feigning surprise. "Oh, you're still here? I thought you'd quit after that little joke." Ethan's hand didn't shake. "I don't walk away from work, sir." The billionaire chuckled, eyes glinting. "That's the spirit. People like you shouldn't dream too high. It makes the fall less painful." A silence spread across the table. The woman in red looked uncomfortable, her smile fading. Ethan placed the bottle back, bowed slightly, and walked away without another word. As he passed the mirrored wall, his reflection caught Michael's gaze, and something in that silent look unsettled the man, just for a second. In the kitchen, Ethan exhaled. He leaned against the cold marble counter, eyes closing as the noise faded around him. His phone vibrated in his pocket. He pulled it out, checking the message. "Unknown number. We're ready. The board meeting starts at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Everything's in your name now." His breath caught. For a long time, he just stared at the message. Then, slowly, he smiled. Not with arrogance, but with relief. The kind of smile that only comes when you've survived humiliation for a purpose. From the dining room, Michael's laughter echoed again, muffled but sharp. Ethan slipped the phone back into his vest, straightened his tie and whispered to himself, "Enjoy your night, Mr. Turner. Tomorrow, it's my turn to serve." The kitchen door creaked open as he stepped out once more, his face calm, unreadable. The music had changed, slower now, softer. He approached the table again, and this time, when Michael looked up, he noticed it. The stillness in the waiter's eyes. Not anger, not fear, just certainty. The kind of certainty that only a man with a secret can carry. By 10 o'clock, The dining room had softened into a glow of half-finished conversations and sleepy candles. New York rain braided down the windows, turning the city into streaks of silver. Ethan moved like a metronome through it all, steady, composed, refusing to give Michael Turner a single flinch to savor. He served, he cleared, he vanished, until a familiar voice hooked him mid-step. "Ethan?" The voice was low, unsure. He turned. Emily, hostess, dark bangs, sharp eyes, held a reservation book against her chest. "There's someone asking for you. Says it's urgent." He followed her to the bar alcove where a woman in a raincoat sat, a paper cup of coffee steaming between both hands as if it were heat and lifeline. She was early 30s, pale with exhaustion, a small boy asleep against her shoulder. The boy's shoelace dragged across the floor, grey with city dust. Ethan's heart pinched. "Sarah," he said, keeping his voice a whisper, "you shouldn't be here." "I had nowhere else," she replied, eyes flicking to the opulence beyond. "The shelter's full again. They say come back tomorrow." She stroked the boy's hair. "He hasn't eaten since noon." Ethan leaned in, the trim of his vest brushing the table. "Give me 5 minutes." He signaled the bartender, then moved to the kitchen with quick, purposeful steps. Minutes later, he returned with a paper bag warm with food, a bottle of water and a small envelope. He slid it across without ceremony. "Take the back exit. There's a rideshare waiting. Go to the address inside. Ask for Rosa. She used to be a cleaning lady here. She'll help tonight." He glanced at the sleeping boy. "Tell her your friend sent you." Sarah's eyes brightened with wet gratitude. "I hate taking from you." "You're not," he said. "This is logistics." A faint smile touched his mouth, gone as soon as it arrived. A throat cleared behind him. Michael Turner's assistant, Olivia Hart, late 20s, immaculate in an ink-black dress, stood there with a practiced neutral face. Only the hard line of her jaw betrayed tension. "Mr. Turner wants a moment," she said quietly. "Now." Ethan's gaze passed over her and landed on Sarah again. "Go," he whispered. "Please." Sarah nodded, rising with the boy gathered close, disappearing into the corridor that led to the service exit. Olivia watched them slip away, eyes narrowing, as if cataloguing details for later use. In Michael's private lounge, the air smelled like old money, leather, peat, and unnecessary cologne. The billionaire didn't bother turning when Ethan entered. He was busy swirling his whiskey. "You know," Michael said, casual as a cat, "charity looks good on the help, keeps the heart soft, keeps expectations low." Ethan stayed by the door. "Do you need anything else, sir?" Michael pivoted, face cocked in mock sympathy. "I need to know why you keep looking at me like you've swallowed a sermon. Did I offend your delicate conscience?" His smile sharpened. "You're a waiter. I'm a, what do they call it in papers, millionaire CEO, or billionaire depending on the quarter. Different planets. Different gravities," Ethan murmured. "What was that?" "Nothing, sir." Olivia stepped in between them, voice crisp. "Mr. Turner, the driver is waiting. You have the uptown meeting at 11:30. "Right," Michael said, dismissing Ethan with a flick of 2 fingers. "Run along. Try not to spill anything on the car when you open my door." As Ethan left, Olivia's gaze snagged his. For a heartbeat, her mask slipped. Curiosity, wariness, maybe recognition. She followed Michael out, heels clicking like a metronome of decision. Back in the main dining room, Emily intercepted him. "Table 9 is asking for dessert menus," she said, handing him leather-bound cards. "And a guy at the bar keeps staring at you." Ethan glanced over. A compact man in a grey suit raised his glass. When Ethan approached, the man smiled without warmth. "Evening, Mr. Hale," he said, using a name Ethan hadn't worn in months. "Board council. We're set for 9 a.m. Confirmation." Ethan's breath barely moved. "Not here," he said, voice low. "Relax. I'm just a friend having a drink." The man wiped condensation from his glass with a cocktail napkin, revealing a handwritten note beneath. "Agenda finalized. Turner out." He slid it across with 2 fingers, then stood and vanished into the rain. Ethan folded the note, pulse steady. He carried desserts to table 9, placed them with quiet elegance, nodded to the compliments he couldn't hear. In the corner, A woman in sequins gossiped about a rumored contract marriage in Michael Turner's past, a whispered scandal that sounded like smoke. Words like secret revealed and shocking truth floated on the air like baited hooks for the city's appetite. As the night thinned, Olivia returned alone, umbrella dripping on the marble. She approached slowly, studying Ethan as if trying to remember a face from a dream. "He thinks you're nobody," she said under her breath. "That's his favorite mistake." Ethan's eyes met hers. "What do you think?" She hesitated, then slipped a slim white card into his hand. "I think tomorrow is going to be loud," she said, "and what happens next might shock everyone." Her perfume trailed behind her as she left. The card in Ethan's palm bore a single line typed in neat serif. "I know who you are." The chandelier hummed overhead, a hive of light. Ethan looked down at the card, felt the city's storm press its forehead to the glass, and realized the quiet was over. The rain hadn't stopped by midnight. It hammered the city in relentless rhythm, washing the world clean while Ethan walked home through the narrow streets of Brooklyn. His black vest clung to him, soaked, but he didn't care. Every step felt deliberate, each one closer to the morning that would rewrite his life. His apartment was small, but it had something no penthouse ever did: silence that belonged to him. The walls were bare except for a single photograph, a faded image of a man and a boy in front of an old manufacturing plant. The man wore the same eyes Ethan had, sharp, focused, filled with the kind of quiet determination that made empires rise. He poured himself a cup of coffee, sat at the edge of his bed, and opened a brown folder. Inside were legal documents stamped with the seal of the Turner Hale Group. He ran his fingers over the signature lines, where Michael Turner's name had once stood, powerful and absolute, until the numbers beneath betrayed him. Years of hidden debts, silent buyouts, and misplaced trust had given Ethan the key he'd been waiting for. Ethan Hale, not the waiter, but the silent shareholder whose father's patents had built the foundation of Turner's empire before being stolen, piece by piece. He closed the folder and leaned back, staring at the ceiling as thunder rolled outside. He remembered his father's voice. "Dignity, son, isn't silence, it's patience." He hadn't understood it then. Now he was living it. His phone buzzed, a message from Olivia. "Olivia, Turner's flight cancelled. He's staying in the city. I'll make sure he's at the meeting at 9 sharp." Ethan stared at the screen for a long time, unsure if the twist of loyalty in her words was genuine or just strategic. Still, he typed back, "Ethan, good. Tomorrow everything ends." He tossed the phone aside and stared at the photograph again. The rain softened. Somewhere between exhaustion and resolve, he fell asleep, still sitting up, the city's hum whispering through the window. At 8:45 a.m., Turner Industries headquarters towered above Manhattan like a glass citadel. The lobby was a cathedral of money: marble floors, gold accents, a living wall of greenery that smelled too alive for the people walking past it. Ethan arrived early, dressed in a tailored charcoal suit, every thread chosen to erase the memory of the waiter's uniform. As he crossed the lobby, no one recognized him. He looked like everyone else, confident, well-groomed, successful. But the elevator mirror reflected more than the suit. It reflected a man carrying the ghosts of every laugh, every whisper, every moment of humiliation. On the 34th floor, the boardroom door stood open. Olivia greeted him at the entrance, her expression unreadable. "You clean up well," she said softly. Ethan smiled faintly. "Funny. Someone told me I'd never be more than a waiter." "Michael doesn't know how to see past his own reflection," she replied. "But he's about to." Inside, the table gleamed under cold white light. 12 directors, each looking like they'd stepped out of a magazine, sat murmuring among themselves. At the head of the table, an empty chair. Then the door swung open. Michael Turner entered, phone pressed to his ear, voice booming with confidence. He was dressed in the same arrogance as the night before. "Yes, cancel the Singapore deal. We'll handle the acquisition internally," he said before hanging up. When he looked up and saw Ethan, he froze mid-step. "What the hell?" Olivia interrupted calmly. "Mr. Turner, this is Mr. Ethan Hale, majority shareholder representative of Hale Holdings." The silence that followed was electric. Michael's laugh broke it, dry, incredulous. "This is a joke, right? He's a waiter." Ethan's gaze didn't waver. "You're right. I was. And while I served wine to your guests, you signed away your control one investment at a time." A folder slid across the table. Documents, signed, sealed, approved. The board members leaned forward, whispers sparking. Michael's smile faltered. "This isn't possible," he hissed. "I own this company." Ethan's voice was quiet, surgical. "You used to. My father built the core patents you stole. I bought back every piece you mortgaged to keep your empire afloat. Now it's mine." For the first time, Michael didn't laugh. His hand tightened around his glass of water until it shook. The room was a cathedral of silence again, this time worshipping a different man. Ethan stood, buttoned his jacket and looked down at him. "You were right about one thing, Mr. Turner. People like me shouldn't dream too high." He paused, eyes sharp. "We should aim higher." As he turned to leave, the light from the skyscraper windows broke across his face, the storm clouds clearing behind him. In the glass reflection, the waiter was gone. The man who replaced him carried something rarer than wealth, dignity. And outside, the rain finally stopped. Michael Turner didn't speak for a long time. He sat in the high-backed leather chair, eyes fixed on the stack of papers that had just destroyed his world. Around him, the board whispered like vultures circling a dying lion. His reflection stared back from the glossy table, the face of a man who had mocked a waiter hours earlier, now stripped of power in front of his own empire. Olivia stood near the window, arms crossed, pretending to study the skyline. But her eyes flickered between the two men, the dethroned billionaire and the silent heir who had waited in the shadows. Finally, Michael laughed, the sound brittle and forced. "So this is it? You think you've won because you bought a few shares?" He shoved the folder aside. "You're a child playing in a world you don't understand." Ethan didn't sit. He didn't need to. "No, Michael. I understand perfectly. You built your fortune off the patents my father created. You used his brilliance, then erased his name. I've spent the last 5 years reclaiming what was stolen, piece by piece." Michael stood abruptly, his chair scraping the marble. "Your father sold those rights, legally. He signed the papers himself." "After you bankrupted him," Ethan replied, his voice low but sharp. "After you humiliated him in front of the same investors who now whisper about your fall." The room fell silent again. The board members exchanged cautious looks, no one daring to side with a man sinking this fast. Olivia's phone buzzed softly. She checked the message and then looked up. "The press already knows," she said quietly. "They're outside." Michael's jaw clenched. "You leaked this?" he growled, glaring at Ethan. "I didn't have to," Ethan said simply. "Truth leaks on its own, especially when it's been suffocating for years." Michael turned to the board, voice desperate now. This is a setup. You all know what I've done for this company. For you." One of the older directors, Mr. Rowe, removed his glasses with deliberate slowness. "You've done plenty, Michael. Mostly for yourself." He glanced toward Ethan. "Mr. Hale, the board will need to discuss next steps privately. But for what it's worth, I believe you've earned the right to lead." Michael's eyes widened, disbelief twisting into rage. "You can't do this to me. I built this." Ethan looked at him for a long moment, not with hatred, but with something colder. Pity. "No, Michael. You built it on someone else's back, and that's why it was never yours." As the meeting dissolved into murmurs and shuffling papers, Michael slammed his palm on the table. "You'll regret this, Hale, I swear it." Ethan picked up his folder, his tone calm. "I already have, but regret is lighter than revenge." He walked out without another word, leaving Michael alone with his shattered reflection. The elevator doors closed with a soft chime. Olivia stepped in beside him, silent. For a long moment, they stood in the mirrored box, descending through 40 floors of memory. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft. "You didn't have to humiliate him, you already had the company." Ethan's eyes stayed fixed on the digital floor numbers counting down. "He taught me humiliation long before I returned the favor. But I didn't do it to hurt him. I did it to free myself." She studied him. "And what now? You're the new CEO. The papers will call you a genius, the mystery investor who outsmarted a billionaire." He exhaled slowly. "Let them talk. I didn't do this for headlines. What did you do it for? He looked at her then, really looked. For my father, and for every man who was told he was just a waiter. The elevator opened into the lobby, where flashes from reporters' cameras erupted like lightning. Olivia slipped on her sunglasses and whispered, "Welcome to the storm." They pushed through the crowd, voices shouting Ethan's name now, not as a servant, but as a man who had toppled an empire. Yet beneath the chaos he felt nothing triumphant, only the quiet ache of fulfillment that comes after years of pain. Outside, the city smelled of rain and headlines. Cars honked, microphones were thrust in his face, questions fired from every direction. "Mr. Hale, is it true you were working undercover as a waiter? Why didn't you reveal your identity sooner? Did Michael Turner really steal your father's work?" He gave them one calm look, then spoke clearly into the microphones. "I was never undercover. I was just a man doing honest work, until the world forced me to remember who I was." He stepped into the waiting car, doors closing against the noise. Inside, Olivia turned to him. "You know he won't stay quiet," she said. "Men like Turner don't disappear, they explode." Ethan's eyes followed the reflection of the city lights sliding across the window. "Then let him explode," he said softly. "I've survived worse." As the car disappeared into the Manhattan night, the first headlines began to bloom across screens worldwide. Billionaire dethroned by his former waiter. Secret revealed in shocking corporate takeover. And somewhere, in the echo of those flashing cameras, Michael Turner's fury was only beginning to burn. By dawn, every major news outlet in New York had the story. The headlines screamed betrayal, redemption, and poetic justice in every possible variation. The waiter who owned the billionaire, Ethan Hale, the silent heir. Turner's empire collapses overnight. But inside a penthouse high above the chaos, Michael Turner wasn't reading the papers. He was staring at the city like it had personally betrayed him. The once unshakable man sat in a silk robe, eyes hollow, drink untouched. The reflection in the glass looked older, not from time, but from humiliation. His assistant, Olivia, hadn't answered a single one of his calls since the board meeting. The silence gnawed at him more than the headlines. He clenched his jaw, muttering, "You think this is over, Hale? You have no idea who you're dealing with." A voice from behind startled him. "Actually, we know exactly who we're dealing with." Michael turned. A tall man in a grey suit stepped out of the shadows. His lawyer, Vincent Keller, the kind of man who smiled only when someone else was bleeding. Vincent set a tablet on the marble counter. "Damage control plan. I've already frozen a few accounts tied to the Hale Holdings transfer. We might be able to stall the takeover in court." Michael's eyes sharpened. "Stall it? No, I want it destroyed. I want him destroyed." Vincent raised an eyebrow. "Legally, you don't have much ground left, but..." He hesitated, then smirked. "There are other ways to make a man bleed." Michael's expression darkened with interest. "Go on." "For your new CEO, our friend Mr. Hale has a sister, doesn't he? Or someone close?" Michael's silence confirmed it. He didn't need to speak the name. Sarah, the woman Ethan had secretly helped the night before. Vincent nodded slowly, like a hunter sensing the scent of prey. "She's not exactly invisible. No job, no address, a single mother with a record of eviction. Easy target for public sympathy, or scandal, depending on how we paint it." Michael's voice was low, venomous. "Find her. If I can't take his company back, I'll take his peace." Meanwhile, in a modest office overlooking the Hudson River, Ethan sat behind the glass desk that had once belonged to Michael Turner. The skyline stretched before him, but his focus stayed on the old framed photo now placed in the corner, his father's worn smile beside the factory gates. Olivia entered, carrying 2 cups of coffee. "Congratulations, Mr. CEO," she said softly, setting one down. Ethan smirked faintly. "Feels strange. Like I'm still waiting for someone to tell me to refill the glasses." Her smile was gentle. "You earned this." Then her tone changed, but Michael won't let it go. Men like him don't accept loss. They rewrite it. He met her gaze. "Then we'll stay 2 steps ahead." She hesitated. "Do you trust me? I wouldn't be here if I didn't." She nodded once, leaving him with that thought. As soon as the door closed, Ethan opened his email. Dozens of congratulatory messages filled his inbox. partners, reporters, old contacts, but at the bottom, an unread message caught his eye. No subject, just a single line. "You took my empire, now watch me take yours." He froze. The sender's name was blank, the address scrambled, but he knew who it was. Michael. That night, Sarah walked through a narrow alley in Queens, holding her son's hand. The neon lights from a nearby bodega flickered over the wet pavement. She'd just finished cleaning offices for extra cash and was heading toward the small apartment Ethan had arranged for her through Rosa. A black car slowed beside the curb. The tinted window rolled down, revealing Vincent Keller's smooth smile. "Sarah Hale?" he asked politely. She hesitated. "Who's asking?" "I represent Mr. Turner. He asked me to deliver something." He held out an envelope, thick and heavy. A gift of sorts. She didn't take it. "I don't want anything from that man." Vincent's tone stayed calm, but his words sharpened. "You might, especially when you see what's inside." He tossed the envelope onto the sidewalk and drove off into the dark. Sarah crouched down, heart racing. Against her better judgment, she opened it. Inside was a stack of photos, blurry, zoomed-in shots of her son, even Ethan leaving his office, and a note. "You can't protect everyone, Ethan." She pressed the envelope against her chest, eyes filling with fear. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rolled again over the city. At that same moment, Ethan stood on his balcony, wind cutting through the night. The city below pulsed with life, blind to the war brewing above it. He didn't know yet what Michael had set in motion. He only knew the silence before a storm, and he felt it now in his bones. The empire might have changed hands, but the game wasn't over. Not yet. Morning light spilled into the city like champagne poured too quickly, bright, dazzling and messy. New York buzzed with gossip. Screens in cafes and offices repeated the same story, the waiter who became a billionaire. Ethan's face flashed on every channel, a symbol of poetic justice. But behind the applause, darker hands were already at work. Michael Turner sat in a dim studio, staring at a camera lens while a reporter adjusted her microphone. His face was calm, charming even, the kind of charm that had once sold lies as easily as truth. "Are we live?" he asked, smoothing his tie. "In 3, 2, 1. The red light blinked on. Michael smiled. "I'd like to address the rumors. Yes, the company was temporarily transferred due to a misunderstanding. But what people don't know is the full story about Ethan Hale, or should I say, Ethan Hale Jr., the son of the man who bankrupted this company decades ago." The reporter leaned forward. "You're saying his takeover was personal?" "Personal and deceitful," Michael said, voice steady. "He infiltrated my company pretending to be a waiter, to steal information, to manipulate trust. And now he's doing it again with your sympathy. You'll see soon enough what kind of man he really is." The cameras cut, but Michael didn't stop smiling. He turned to Vincent, who stood behind the crew. "Release the files," he said quietly. Vincent nodded. "Already done." Within the hour, fabricated documents hit social media. Fake financial transfers, photos edited to look like Ethan bribing investors, and worst of all, a headline claiming "Hale family involved in charity fraud." The internet devoured it. At Turner Industries, now renamed Hale Technologies, Ethan's assistant rushed in, panic in her voice. "Sir, you need to see this." He looked up from a report, the screen lighting his face as the article loaded. For a moment, his eyes didn't blink. He scrolled slowly, reading lie after lie until he reached the photo. Sarah, standing in front of a shelter, edited to look like she was taking money from donation envelopes. His chair scraped back sharply. "Get my car," he said. "Where are you going?" Olivia asked from the doorway. "To fix what he just broke." She followed him down the hall. "Ethan, this is exactly what he wants. He's provoking you into reacting. Don't give him the image he needs." He stopped, facing her. "He dragged my sister into this. I won't sit still while he poisons her name." Olivia looked away. "Then let me come with you. You're not walking into his world alone." They found Sarah outside the shelter, holding her son close while reporters crowded the sidewalk. Cameras flashed. Questions flew like stones. "Did you steal money from donations? Was this part of your brother's takeover scheme?" Sarah's eyes darted from face to face, her voice trembling. please, stop. None of this is true." Ethan stepped forward, placing himself between her and the cameras. The flashes painted his face in white fire. "That's enough," he said, low and sharp. "You print another word of this, and I'll see every one of you in court." The reporters hesitated, sensing the power in his calm fury. Olivia guided Sarah and the boy into the car, shielding them from the chaos. Inside, Sarah broke down, tears streaking her face. "He won't stop, Ethan. He's going to ruin you like he ruined Dad." Ethan reached for her hand. "No," he said softly. "Not this time." Later that night, Ethan stood alone in his office. The city glittered beneath him, but it no longer looked beautiful, just endless and cold. His phone buzzed again. A new message from an unknown number. "You wanted my attention, waiter. Now you have it." He exhaled slowly. Then, instead of replying, he dialed Olivia. "Trace the message," he said. "Every line, every signal. I want to know where it came from." She hesitated. "You're not planning to—" "I'm ending this," he interrupted. "Tomorrow, I meet him face to face." He hung up and looked out at the skyline. Somewhere out there, Michael was smiling, because this was exactly what he'd wanted. But what Michael didn't know was that Ethan had already started writing the next move. He wasn't the same man who had been humiliated in a restaurant. He was something colder now, smarter. And when two predators hunt the same ground, only one walks away. That night, thunder rolled across Manhattan again, low, deliberate like footsteps. Tomorrow, the war between the billionaire and the waiter would finally leave the shadows. The next morning, Manhattan glittered under a pale sun, the kind that pretends peace while wars brew beneath its light. Ethan arrived at the glass tower of a major news network, flanked by Olivia and a wall of flashing cameras. He'd agreed to a live interview, the same stage where Michael had poisoned his name a day earlier. Inside the studio, the tension was almost theatrical. Michael was already seated across from the host, smiling that same polished smile. His cufflinks caught the light like tiny blades. When Ethan walked in, the air shifted. Two men, one truth between them, waiting to be claimed. "Gentlemen," the host began, "thank you for joining us. Mr. Turner, you've accused Mr. Hale of deceit. Mr. Hale, this is your first chance to respond publicly." Michael leaned forward, feigning concern. "I have nothing against him personally, but people deserve to know who's really behind this takeover. His father left this company in ruins." Ethan's voice was calm, almost too calm. "My father didn't leave it in ruins. He left it in your hands. You ruined it when you turned innovation into greed." Michael laughed softly. "Is that what this is? Revenge?" Ethan's eyes didn't blink. "Justice." Then Olivia's phone buzzed in her lap. A signal. She gave a barely perceptible nod. Ethan turned to the host. "May I show something?" The screen behind them lit up. Not documents, but a video clip. A younger Michael Turner appeared on screen, standing in the same factory Ethan's father had once owned, signing papers with two lawyers beside him. One whispered, "He doesn't even know he's selling the patent rights, does he?" And Michael answered, "He doesn't need to know. He's desperate enough to sign anything." The studio went silent. Michael's smirk froze halfway. "That recording," Ethan said softly, "was buried in the company archives. You can verify the metadata. It's from the year my father lost everything." The host turned pale. "Mr. Turner, is this real?" Michael stammered something, but the control room already confirmed it. The file was genuine. Olivia met Ethan's eyes. They'd won. Cameras flashed as security escorted Michael out, his face drained of color. Ethan didn't celebrate. He just sat there, hands clasped, breathing slowly. Justice didn't feel like triumph. It felt like release. Outside, as they stepped into the sunlight, Olivia whispered, "It's over." Ethan looked at her, tired, grounded. "No," he said softly. "Now it's time to rebuild what he destroyed." And somewhere behind them, Michael's reflection disappeared into the crowd, but not for the last time. The city didn't stop to celebrate his victory. It just kept moving. Cars, sirens, people reading the same headline and then scrolling to the next scandal. But for Ethan, The noise felt distant, as if he were underwater. From the window of his new corner office, he watched clouds drift between the towers. The phone rang non-stop, investors congratulating him, journalists begging for exclusives. But his mind stayed on Sarah and her son. He wanted them safe, unseen, untouched by this circus. Olivia entered quietly, setting a folder on his desk. "Damage control's working," she said. "Turner's legal team is collapsing, but..." He raised an eyebrow. "Someone leaked your address." He exhaled, shoulders tense. He's still reaching for a match even while drowning. That night he met Sarah in the shelter's courtyard. The boy ran toward him, small arms wrapping around his waist. For the first time in days, Ethan smiled without effort. "Are you okay?" he asked. She nodded, eyes tired. They stopped calling. "I think the city found someone new to blame." He crouched, brushing the boy's hair. "Good, it's over now." But as he said it, thunder rumbled far away, a reminder that peace in this city never lasts long. Across town, in a cheap hotel room, Michael Turner watched the same interview replay on a cracked television. His empire gone, his reputation shattered, he sat amid empty bottles and unpaid bills. The glow from the screen painted his face in ghostly blue. He whispered to himself, "He thinks this makes us even." Then louder, almost laughing, "No, this just makes us the same." He reached for his phone, opening a contact labeled Olivia Hart. His thumb hovered, then stopped. A bitter smile crossed his face. "You always pick the winning side," he muttered, "but I'm not finished." He sent one final message, to an unknown number, the same shadowy contact Vincent once used. "Plan B. We move at dawn." The next morning, Ethan woke to sirens in the distance. From his window, a black plume of smoke twisted above the skyline, rising near the Turner Hale plant, the same one his father had built. His phone buzzed once. Unknown number. "You took my company. I'll burn the rest." Ethan closed his eyes. For the first time, fear felt heavier than anger. The war wasn't over. It was about to turn personal again. The air outside the Turner Hale plant smelled of smoke and melted steel. Fire trucks screamed through the dawn, red lights flashing against the fog. Ethan pushed past the barricade before anyone could stop him. The factory, his father's legacy, was burning like a confession written in flame. He ran until the heat forced him back. Windows shattered one by one, bursting like old secrets. Inside he saw the ghost of his father in every glowing beam, every collapsing wall. "You built this to survive men like him," he thought, "and I couldn't even protect it." Olivia found him standing in the rain-soaked ash. Her voice was low, urgent. "The cameras are here. You need to leave before this turns into another spectacle." He turned to her slowly. "Is it confirmed?" She nodded. "Michael set it up. We have footage from a security feed. Him and Keller sneaking in hours before." Ethan closed his eyes. The world tilted with anger, grief, and something deeper, the temptation to strike back. "Call the police," he said finally. "I'll handle the rest." By afternoon, the fire was out, but the city was already buzzing with the story. "Disgraced billionaire arrested after arson attempt," the headlines read. Michael Turner was found unconscious near the site, smoke-stained, half delirious. They said he kept mumbling Ethan's name as firefighters dragged him away. Ethan visited the hospital that evening. No cameras, no entourage, just him and Olivia in a sterile corridor that smelled of antiseptic and regret. Through the glass, Michael lay on the bed, oxygen mask strapped to his face, his skin pale beneath the bruises. Olivia whispered, "You don't owe him anything." "I know," Ethan said, "but maybe I owe myself something." He stepped into the room, the monitors beeping softly. Michael stirred, eyes flicking open with effort. "Come to watch me fall again?" he rasped. Ethan pulled a chair beside him. "No, I came to end it." Michael's gaze hardened. "End it? You already took everything." Ethan shook his head. "No, Michael, I'm giving something back." He reached into his coat and placed a small envelope on the tray. 51% of the shares, yours again, on one condition. You rebuild the factory exactly as it was. No greed, no shortcuts, just jobs, families, dignity. Michael blinked. disbelief cutting through the morphine haze. Why? Because burning your enemy doesn't rebuild the world, Ethan said quietly. Forgiving him might. He stood, leaving the envelope behind. The machines beeped steadily in his wake. As he walked down the corridor, Olivia caught up, eyes wide. You just gave him everything back. Ethan smiled faintly. Not everything. I kept my peace. A slow rain began again outside, washing the ash from the streets, turning smoke into steam. The city exhaled. But somewhere deep inside that hospital room, a broken man stared at a single envelope, realizing that the one he tried to destroy had just saved him. Days bled into one another after the fire. The headlines softened, then disappeared. New scandals replaced old ones, and the city moved on, as it always did. Yet for Ethan, silence finally felt like home. He walked through the skeleton of the rebuilt factory months later, the air still tinged with the ghost of smoke and the promise of rebirth. Machines hummed again, quieter this time, steadier. Men and women who'd once feared unemployment now worked with cautious pride. Hope, it turned out, sounded like metal meeting metal in rhythm. Michael Turner wasn't there that morning. He was in a rehab clinic upstate, far from the cameras, learning to exist without rage. Olivia had visited him once and told Ethan later, he's different, not humble yet, but quieter. Maybe that's enough. Ethan smiled faintly. Sometimes, silence is the beginning of change. That afternoon, he met Sarah at a cafe overlooking the Hudson. Her son was drawing superheroes on a napkin, the skyline sketched in shaky lines. She looked up, eyes full of tired warmth. He says you're his hero now. Ethan chuckled. Tell him heroes make mistakes too. He knows, she said. He still thinks you win. He looked out the window, the river glinting like glass, sunlight spilling across the water. Winning isn't taking something, he murmured. It's letting go before it ruins you. They sat in silence for a while, watching the boats move beneath the bridges. The city pulsed beyond them, vast and alive, as if forgiving itself for everything it had ever broken. That night, Ethan returned to his office for the last time. The walls still carried echoes of battles fought and won. On the desk, a single envelope waited. Michael's handwriting shaky but clear. Factory rebuilt. Workers rehired. Thank you. No signature, no apology. But for Ethan, it was enough. He switched off the lights and stepped into the corridor. Outside, the skyline shimmered, 1,000 stories stacked on top of each other. Rich, poor, proud, fallen, forgiven. Ethan Hale walked away without looking back. Somewhere between the man he'd been and the one he'd become, there was peace. The storm that began with laughter ended in silence. The billionaire and the waiter, two men who once stood on opposite sides of a table, had finally traded places in the only way that mattered. One found humility, the other peace. Ethan never returned to the spotlight. He let the world keep its headlines and noise, choosing instead to rebuild the factory his father once dreamed of. It became more than a company. It became a place where people mattered more than profit, where dignity worked beside progress. Michael Turner disappeared from business pages. Months later, a small story surfaced, an anonymous donation funding scholarships for workers' families. No one needed to guess where it came from. Sometimes redemption doesn't arrive in grand gestures, but in quiet acts that no one records. And in the end, that's what remained. Not revenge, not power, but forgiveness. The kind of forgiveness that turns scars into foundations, humiliation into honor, and enemies into reminders of who we are capable of being. Because dignity doesn't shout, it endures. Thank you for staying with us until the end of this heart-touching story. Tell us in the comments which part moved you the most. Subscribe and turn on the bell to receive more stories that inspire and transform. Leave a like if you believe in the invisible strength of dignity and family. And above all, thank you for being part of this community that believes in stories with soul. And before you go, watch the story I leave here on the left. I'm sure it will also move you and make you reflect.